All right, awesome. I think we're live. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for tuning in. We're glad to have you guys all on board for another one of our weekly live shows. It's really exciting, and we're hoping that today is going to be really informative, really productive, and that all of you can take something away from all of this and learn something about the experiences of one of a very distinguished guest that we have with us today. Basically, I'll first off start off by introducing her. Our guest today is Areej Khan, and she is a British Pakistani computer scientist and who is hard of hearing. She was diagnosed with her hearing loss around the age of 4 or 5 and had a cochlear implant surgery at the age of 25. And now she's been living between the UK, Dubai, and Pakistan. But excitedly, the thing that we're going to discuss the most today is that she has an Instagram page where basically we go to get connected to her, and also where basically she raises awareness on hearing loss and shares her story to inspire others. And we're really happy to have her today. We're so glad where she could just come on board and answer all the questions and queries and share her experience and her journey of her whole life, basically. So, without any further ado, I want to invite Reach and Azima, who will be interpreting for her. Hi.
Hi, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. How are you, Reach?
Alhamdulillah, I'm good. Thank you so much for the introduction you just gave. It was spot on.
No, we're really glad to have you on board. And basically, without any further ado, I just kind of want to get started. We just want to jump right in and kind of start off with the with your introduction. Basically, if you could kind of talk a little bit about yourself and then your passion behind your page.
First, okay, so I just want to start off by saying thank you so much for this wonderful experience. What you guys are doing together as a team at Connect is absolutely fantastic, and I just wanted to make sure I get the chance to emphasize on that. Now, I'm going to start by introducing myself, and just like you said, I'm actually a computer science teacher. So before I used to teach in high school, and now I teach elementary and middle school. I used to live in the UK, and now I've moved to Dubai. I just moved there last year, and I teach computer science there to younger kids because technology is advancing, and it's very important for kids to have the programming and problem solving skills. And I'm just speaking very slowly so you can understand. I hope it's okay.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, and the other thing was, so I'm going to introduce a lot about my hearing loss as well. And I was diagnosed with that at the age of 4 or 5. I used to get a lot of ear infections when I was a kid, and to date, the exact cause for my hearing loss isn't exactly known. It's so that they say that there is a nerve in the cochlea which the hairs may have been damaged, and that's maybe what caused it, but the exact diagnosis is unknown. So I started this page during the pandemic to raise awareness on hearing loss because I feel that there's a lack of education on what hearing loss is and how common it is and why it's so important for people to understand how they can communicate better to help people with a hearing loss. And yeah, so I moved to Dubai last year and I've been teaching there at the moment, and I've been born and brought up in London all my life.
That's interesting. So, I kind of want to move towards basically talking about where you're currently working and like what challenges specifically do you face, when teaching hearing children? Like, what are the specific challenges that you're facing?
So the challenges I face currently or in a specific situation, like where
So,
I'm working.
so as much perspective as you can provide in either of those would be great for us.
Okay, so the challenges that I find I currently face are mainly that people struggle to sometimes understand that how they can communicate better with someone with a hearing loss. And quite often people will just start shouting. It's shocking to know that but it's very, very common where if you tell someone you can't hear and they'll just start shouting and they think by shouting and speaking a lot louder, I'll be able to hear, but it's actually, you have to speak slower and clearer because I lip read. So I consider myself to be hard of hearing with the implant, but I'm actually deaf without the implant. So what I forgot to mention is that I have a cochlear implant, which I wear, which helps me hear. And maybe if I explain a bit more about my journey of my hearing loss, that will help. So would you like me to explain that? Would that help?
Yes, sir, because I was actually going to kind of move towards that because I wanted to ask when specifically did you start losing your hearing, and like what kind of was the reaction of people around you, and then what made you make a decision of getting a cochlear implant. So if you could shed light on those things.
Brilliant. Okay, so I'm going to start off with the early days of the journey and then move on. So I was diagnosed with the hearing loss at the age of 4 or 5, and I had a lot of ear infections, as I mentioned before. And it was quite a challenge for my family, being Pakistani, which I think to any disability or even just being parents, it can be a very difficult thing for them to acknowledge or accept. So the moment that you find out that, oh, my child can't hear or they've lost their hearing, especially when you lose it later, it's very difficult to accept that. And obviously I was a child. It wasn't really something for me to accept at that point. But I think my family must have gone through a bit of a shock and like, oh no, like my child can't hear anymore. How is my child going to manage? So they constantly have a lot of questions on like, why did this happen? They would often quite also be like, maybe it's not the hearing loss. It's actually she can't concentrate. So sometimes family would try to, in a way, deny it sometimes as well. And that's quite common in all families and the process of accepting your hearing loss as well. So then when I went on to high school was a real challenge for me because I think, again, when I was younger, hearing loss wasn't very widely known. The high school I went to was in the UK, and I was probably one of two of the only ones that had hearing aids or hearing loss. And the only other girl who had a hearing loss wore a hijab. So you couldn't see her hearing aids. So for me, that was like, oh, lucky, she wears a hijab. And then once I started wearing one, because I was like, it'll cover my ears and people won't see my hearing aids. And I did that for a period of time. And I also did it for Ramadan for my own reasons. But I did look up to her and think, oh, wow, she wears a hijab. And then I realized that another reason was because I was getting bullied very often. So bullying is a really big thing, especially if you have any kind of disability, anything is different, anything makes you unique. Instead of us being confident and outshining it, quite often we'll be like, we'll become very timid and we'll lose our confidence, and then it will give people the opportunity to kind of pick on us. So people would start bullying you. Oh, she can't hear. She wears that in her ear. I should shout at her. She's not going to hear what I'm saying. Or, you become, in a way, a target for people. Not that you make yourself one. And so during high school, it was very difficult that in the end, I chose not to wear them because the hijab was just during Ramadan, and then I stopped wearing it because I was like, it's not really me. And then I took it off and I was like, okay, so I'll take my hearing aids off too. So I managed through high school without them. So you can imagine a girl sitting in a high school and she couldn't hear the teacher. The teacher would probably be calling me and I wouldn't really hear what the teacher was saying. I would go home and read everything again to study everything because I just chose not to wear them because I didn't want people to see me with them and they would judge me in a certain way. So I didn't do that. And then when I came to college, around the age of 18, I came to a school where there was a deaf community. And in that school, they had at least, I'd say, 10 people. So that school knew how to support me. And me seeing those people signing really got to me. So I was like, wow, look at them so happy. And they're just signing away. Look at the expressions on their face. That's amazing, And me, I have hearing aids and I don't even wear them. So that really got to me, and I was like, you know what? They wear their hearing aids so proudly, and I I'm not doing that. Why? I'm doing this to myself, you know. So I decided that I'll start wearing them, and then also my mum was a really big support to me. Of course, at the early days, even she for the family, everyone, it was something new and different. You don't know how to experience it, or what to do, how to solve the problem. But eventually, my mum was like to me, you really need to start accepting yourself, because if you don't love yourself, no one will. So the moment you open your eyes and realize that actually I'm the one putting myself in this situation, I'm the one making myself think this is not good. What I'm going through is bad. I'm putting these thoughts in my head. I need to wake up and be like, no, you know what? If someone else can be or happy and live life to the full, I can do that too. So that's when
Right.
I kind of woke up and I had that realization. Around the age of 18, you can say, wow, like that's so late. So you spent at least more than 10 years of your life just in, like in a way bargaining and trying to deny that I had a hearing loss, or trying to be exactly like anyone else, or not accepting myself basically. And then eventually at the age of 18, I did. And then again, it started to go down. At the age of 18, I felt that I started to lose my hearing even more, and my hearing aids weren't enough to support me. So I'm from a hearing family. I'm the only one that can't hear in the family. So for them, it was very like, Areej, you need to concentrate more. Areej, you need to listen. Areej, you need to really try. So the only thing I could think of, and even work. So when I left university, I worked for a multinational company called GE, and I was an IT consultant there, and it was really difficult for me. And that's when I realized that, what, the whole world is hearing, and for me to kind of, in a way, fit into it, either I kind of need to learn to sign, which is great, but still I'm going to struggle to communicate with everyone. And my family, I can't really put them, it would be great if they could all learn to sign and then I could sign with them. But then I felt like I can't make everyone change. I can't make other people do things for me. But what I can do is, there's something called a Cochlear implant, which I researched. And then eventually I decided to go for it. Again, my family was like, no, Areej, because you lose your hearing in that ear. If you have a little bit of hearing in that ear, there's a chance that you lose all of it. So I had about 18% hearing in my left ear. But for me, I was like, if I can hear up to 80% in that ear, then why not? What's the point of living with 18% when you can get 80% hearing? So it really increased. And then the story of my cochlear implant is probably for another session or another day, because it had its ups and downs too. Sorry, I can't hear you. I think you're muted.
I'm sorry, my bad. Basically, that was very insightful. I mean, considering the fact that you've had to kind of deal with this ever since you were a kid, up until kind of realizing yourself in a professional capacity. What would you suggest other people that are in a position that's similar to yours? What do you feel they should kind of look out for, or maybe focus more on, and what perspective change would you kind of suggest them to have?
So, as in what they should decide to do. Is that what you mean? Sorry, I didn't
Yeah.
understand.
So I'll just repeat it. What advice do you have for people that are in a position similar to yours?
So people in a position similar to mine, I would suggest accept your hearing loss sooner rather than later. That is the biggest advice I would give, because it breaks my heart. Even when I visit Pakistan, I have some family, friends, and people, and they've been diagnosed with hearing losses at the age of 16, 18. Our hearing is so sensitive, and we really take it for granted. And I remember speaking to someone, and she was just in denial. And she's just making things difficult for herself, because you see, her I went to high school. If I hadn't accepted it then, if I didn't have the confidence to be like, no, you don't speak to me like that, I'm just as unique as you are. You don't have the right to treat me like that. If I didn't have the guts to do that sooner, I I I wish I really did that. You know,
Mhm.
that's the advice I would give people who
Right.
connect with me, no matter who. But then the biggest thing is that the people around you need to support you. If you don't have support around you, for example, if your family is constantly like no, you know, this doesn't concentrate, like you just trying to. If parents are in denial, families in denial,
I'm
then
so sorry. I think there's distortion because I don't. It's not. Can you mute yourself?
Sorry? Oh, sure, sure, sure.
Can you mute?
so I would just say that they need to really make sure that they accept their hearing loss sooner rather than later. And if family around them can try to do that too, rather than being in denial, it really helps make things better because then they get the support that they need. And in the process of accepting it, you find out how you can help yourself because living with a hearing loss is not easy and you do need support. And you need to find out how you can get that support and what is the right support for you. The sooner you do that, the more beneficial everything will be for you. Because imagine I'm 40 years old and I'm still in denial. I don't have an implant. I don't have hearing aids. I'm sitting there quiet, like a very quiet, not doing anything about it. What kind of person would I be? Would I grow? Would I become the person I am today? No, I won't. So to do that, we have to try to accept our loss sooner rather than later.
I think that's a very important takeaway for everyone right now. That in situations similar to these, they just have to kind of learn to not only accept it, but own it as a part of themselves and see how they can move forward with that, in proud way. So that's, I think, that's a very important point. So with that covered, I really want to kind of move the discussion towards your views on both using sign language and speech as a medium of communication. What are your thoughts on both those particular mediums, and if you'd like to share them?
Yeah, so that's quite a common question to be asked, I find. I mean, sometimes I find that the deaf community is so strong and they're solid on, and there's some schools in the UK as well who are like no speech, only sign, or some schools are deaf schools are just speech, no sign. I think it should be left down to the person to decide themselves. Just like me, I knew that I wanted to get the cochlear implant. I felt it was right for me. That is my choice. I decide. I decided this is what I want to do. This is the path I want to take. But if you decide that you want to learn sign language, the thing is, I want to learn sign language too. But the only problem I have is the people around me don't know how to use it. So that's kind of what I have to think. Can I really get my dad to learn sign language and my mom? What kind of mind? How would it be easy for me to convince them? Would they do that? If that's going to be more challenging for me, then I decide that actually no, I can just focus on myself and I can go for the implant. But then of course the implant isn't available for everyone, depending on where you live, what packages are available. It is something very expensive as well. So obviously, if I didn't have the implant available, I'd probably stick to hearing aids, and I would have had to use sign language as an option if my hearing did start to go worse and I didn't have the option of an implant. So it's kind of, we have to think about what journey we're on and how we are, how our situation is, because for everyone it's very different. Someone else I speak to with a hearing loss will tell me something completely different to me. And that's what we need to accept and realize. We shouldn't compare, and we should just realize that, okay, they chose to speak. They chose to speak. But the other thing is that I think Azima did at one point ask me, she said, what made you choose speech therapy instead of sign language? I had a meeting with her last week or a few days ago. And I was like, you know what? It wasn't really a choice I made. Alhamdulillah, when I was a child, I managed to pick up speech. So my first language was actually Urdu. believe it or not, and I've completely forgotten most of it. And I focus on the English because that's what I hear mostly around me. So whatever you hear, the accent you hear is how you would speak. However things sound to you, you will start to speak in that way. And that is why, so basically, a lot of doctors also say that my speech does not match my hearing. I never went for speech therapy. So if I could speak, I didn't really just decide, I didn't really think of the option to learn sign language because I was able to speak. It was more me not being able to hear. Even when I take the implant off, I would just sound a bit quieter, but I would be able to pronounce things.
So I think a key takeaway from what you basically just mentioned is that it's kind of an individual decision, whether you decide to go for speech or speech therapy or sign language. But the one important thing in all of the cases that should be applied is that no one should be kind of coerced into making that decision. It shouldn't be because of disenfranchisement or being discriminated against. It would rather be something that's a more personal choice that you feel is a better choice for you. So I guess that's the key takeaway from what you've just said, right?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. It's like me choosing to speak a language as well. So, for example,
Mm-hmm.
if I choose to speak English today, if I chose to speak sign language today, it's my choice how I want to communicate with you. Uh, so for some people, they can only speak in sign language, so that's why we have to facilitate with them. We need to make sure we provide that support, but it's down to them what they want to choose as a method of communication, whether they want to choose English speech, if they want to choose Urdu speech, if they want to choose sign language. It's entirely up to you, and you have the choice. And then it is down, for example, if I chose sign language, then it's down to other people to provide that interpretation and support for me. I don't necessarily, especially in a work environment or an educational environment, I don't expect them all to learn sign language, but there should at least be an interpreter available. But in the house, if you can't always have an interpreter. It's kind of forcing your entire family to learn sign language, and it can be very difficult to do that. And alhamdulillah, I was lucky to have the option to have the cochlear implant.
No, I think yeah, I completely agree. It's more of an individual thing than anything else. So I want to kind of touch more upon. You mentioned that your family has been very supportive, and you personally have been in a relatively privileged position of having the option of a cochlear implant. But apart from all of these resources, what was your support system? What did you kind of gravitate towards anytime you needed someone to be there for you? Like who and what helped you out the most during the whole process?
My mother. My
All
mother.
right.
I think mothers, like, you know how they say in Islam that Jannat is under the feet of a mother.
Right.
So that's exactly what it is. And the love that a mother has for a child is unconditional. And that is the beauty of it. That no matter what, a mother sees a child in pain or anything, she will literally be there to support you. We obviously we would think that, oh my God, like, I've got a hearing loss. I'm causing grief to my mother. Oh my God, I can't hear her. I ask her to repeat things so many times. And she may get annoyed or angry with you, but it's more because she wants to give you the skills and the support to make you who you are. And she knows how hard it is to live in a world where a majority of the world is hearing. So that is why I feel that my mum did decide to send me to a mainstream school, and she did encourage me to speak a lot. And she encouraged me to wear my hearing aids. And the only time where she was a bit worried was during the time when I decided to do my implant. But then again, as from a mother, you have to see it from that perspective, that she was just worried that, you're going to lose all the hearing in that ear. But still, she was there to support me when I was in the hospital, going through the surgery. She was there for me through the whole time. And sometimes that's the little bit of support you need. And you need to make the decision yourself. Because the moment that my mother would say, beta, go and get the implant, that's kind of me saying, okay, my mother said it, to go and get it done. But as an adult, I need to be able to make that decision and own it. that I decided to go and get the implant. I am doing this to myself. The moment you accept it, especially as an adult, that is when you start to take responsibility of things. Whereas if I constantly ask my mum for solutions, then obviously in the end, it is possible that sometimes you get the anger towards her and you can blame her. And obviously the mother will take it, but that's not what you want to do. But she will no matter be there to support you through anything. Alhamdulillah.
I think that's a pretty sweet thing to hear, honestly. And like it kind of goes to show that we kind of have to have perspective from both the sides. You know, it's not just the person going through the whole experience; it's their parents too that really want to kind of do the best to provide their child with the best life possible with the resources and the tools they have at hand now. It's never easy for anyone, but parents especially for sure. And it's kind of great that you've had that support system for you all in all, and it's really inspiring. Let's kind of then open the floor to questions because we've been going back and forth, and you've provided a lot of perspective and context. But I kind of want to see if the audience members have any specific questions for you. So we'll basically I'll check if we have any specific questions, and then I'll share them right here. Um,
Just one more thing I just wanted to share. Another specific question. Is there a question? Did you find any questions? If there is a question, there's something I can go through. So one more thing I wanted to go through was the stages of accepting your hearing loss. So there are 5 stages to accepting your hearing loss, and it's not necessary that we all go through it in the same stages. But the first one is denial. So the first thing is that quite often, because hearing loss can be diagnosed at any age, at any stage in your life. A lot of people have a misconception that you are born with it, or it happens when you get older. It can happen at any stage in your life for any reason. So the first thing is to avoid you will start denying it. You will get a hearing test done, and the hearing test will show that you have a hearing loss. It's an invisible disability, and you'll convince yourself that no, I can hear everything, because you will hear some things you won't. Just like I'm having a conversation with you right now, even if I take my implant off with my other ear, I will hear certain things. I'll hear some sounds, and then I will convince myself that the world sounds like this. You know, it's an illusion that you give yourself that this is what the world sounds like, and I can hear. So that's the denial stage, where you refuse to believe it and convince yourself that it's not true. Then you will go through to the next stage, which is anger. And you'll be like, why did this happen to me? Because every hearing test that you have will almost show that, no, you can't hear. You'll go through at least 5, 10 tests. And only till you get the evidence that you have the hearing loss, you will come to the stage of anger. That why did this happen to me? Why did I have to lose my hearing? Why is it me who had to be born like this? You often find that if you're born with it, it's usually your family that goes through the denial phase because you're too young, and it's usually your family that will go through the anger phase. But you will go through it as a child. When you start to see other people being different, you will go through at some point. But usually, if you're born with it, you'll go through the denial phase from your family. So that when you're born and family is told that your child cannot hear, as a child, you don't know anything. So it'll be your family that will be trying to deny it. That, oh, no, baad mein sahi ho jayega, kuch ho jayega, sahi ho jayega. Or even sometimes the denial phase is that nazar lag gayi us pe. Quite often, they just convince you somehow that something is going to be fine afterwards, and this is just some bad luck, or something bad has happened. And it's very common in our society that we do that. And then it's anger, that why did it happen to me? And then eventually you will go to a phase, which is the third phase of bargaining. And that is where you make yourself the victim. That, I'm the one suffering. I'm the one who's bad. I'm the one who is, putting a bad name on my family. I'm the one who's doing bad, can't hear. I'm an embarrassment to my family. You'll convince yourself that you're a victim, and you force your family to help you. You'll be like, okay, my mother needs to look at me all the time. brother and sister need to look at me all the time. It's important they need to know how to help you, but you won't do anything to help yourself. You won't communicate your needs with them, but you'll convince yourself that they need to help you and something is really badly wrong with you. So it won't be like an equal balance where I need to do something and you need to do something to help me, or be like, I'm in a really bad situation in my life and you need to try and help me. You all need to interpret for me. You all need to write things for me. So you'll come to that phase, but sometimes people don't. They go straight into depression. And this is why mental health issues are very common in people who have a hearing loss as well, because we can stay in the depression phase for a very, very long time. And the depression phase involves basically avoiding social environments. So you basically say to yourself that I'm not going to go to that event because I can't hear people. I can't hear their music. I can't hear this. I'm not going to be able to enjoy the event. So I'm going to stay at home. There's a big shadi going on and you're going to be like, I don't want to go. Your friends are going out. I'm not going to hear anything they're saying. Instead, you can be like, with a bit of the bargaining that, okay, I'm going to communicate with my friends that they need to look at me when they're speaking so I can understand what they're saying. They need to speak a bit slower, or we can I can try to teach them sign language. If you try to do something, then they would do something to give you back. And believe me or not, in that the world is a lovely place. We just convince ourselves it's not. We convince ourselves that, oh no, they're going to judge me. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. But the moment you show that confidence and you be strong and you stand up to them and you say that, you know what, I can't hear. And I need you to look at me, please, when you're speaking, because I can't hear. The moment you start doing that and they start to see the confidence in you, they will try to help you, because you do need help, and it's down to you to try and communicate that. And the moment you accept yourself and learn to love yourself, that is the moment you will see a change. Inshallah. I hope that everyone can take that. And
I think yeah, that is something very important for everyone to hear, because sometimes all of us have this negativity in us, that kind of forces us to think the worst of everything. But I think you said it best. The world's a wonderful place, and it can often surprise you. And I'm glad it was as surprising for you as it has been for us during our journey as well. And we also have a question from the audience member. They kind of want to understand how long it took for you to develop your speech, after getting the implant, with your regular therapy sessions.
so I never went for speech therapy sessions. The question is about speech therapy, right?
Yes. So how long did it take you to develop your speech after having the implant? Like, that's the question.
Well, it was already there. I didn't have to develop on it. But I know people who didn't have such good speech, and after the implant, it did get better. And it takes at least, I'd say, to get to the peak level, it takes at least 6 months, because the recovery process for an implant is 3 months. And then they try to check you in 6 months and then 1 year. So I would say by six, but of course for everyone it's different. For me, I had my speech since I was a kid, so it wasn't something that I would go for hearing therapy. I wouldn't go for speech therapy. They would take me to hearing tests and they would make me listen to sounds and try to recognize them, because one of the biggest things that I struggled with was recognizing sounds.
Okay, understood. So, and in your experience, do you think the schools in the United Kingdom accommodates well enough for hard of hearing and deaf students? Like, what are the services that are offered over there for their
So
accommodation?
from what I've seen in other countries, I think they do really, really well. And from what I've heard in other countries as well, UK do have the support. For example, when I was in college, I used to have a note taker sitting at the back of my class, writing all the notes whatever the teacher would say, whatever a student would respond was written down and typed up for me. So at the end of the lesson, I could read it and go over it. And they try to facilitate visual aid, and in videos, any videos they show in the lessons, they have subtitles so you can read them. They have captioning provided. So they do a lot to accommodate students with a hearing loss in the UK especially, but it also depends on what school you go to, whether that school is funded with the support to provide for such things. Some schools will have a large population of kids with hearing loss, so they'll have more funding provided from the government to provide that support, whereas a school that has less will have less support. It just depends on the school you go to, but majority, I think there is a lot of support. Yeah.
That's good to know. And other than that, there's a question asking how, like, what percentage of lip reading kind of entails your communication experience? How much lip reading do you use to kind of understand individuals?
So I am using a lot of lip reading. I use a lot of lip reading. I'd say before I had my implant, I was literally just lip reading. I wasn't really listening to anything because, again, I was struggling to put sounds together and recognize sounds. I would literally need someone to look at me. If I could not see their face, I wouldn't hear what they were saying. But after the implant, that has got really better. One of the things around the age of 25, the reason why I decided to go for it was because I realized everyone doesn't always look at you. And also I started to suffer from a bit of anxiety where I would start looking at someone's face and they would speak so fast that I'd start panicking a bit and I wouldn't be able to make out what they're saying. And that I realized that was happening to me a lot. So it was literally everything. I started getting a bit dizzy, and I noticed that. So I was thinking, I have to do something because my hearing is starting to get really bad. I'm becoming so dependent on lip reading, and my eyes are getting very tired. So I need to give my eyes a bit of rest. Now I find that there's a mixture of using my hearing and lip reading. There's a good balance where I don't have that situation anymore.
Right. So it kind of took you time to realize how much you need to kind of understand and all of that, right? How much lip reading and how much hearing you should rely on, right? Other than that, I don't think we have any more questions. There's a lot of praise. People are genuinely really inspired. We have people mentioning that you've kind of exposed them to a perspective that they were never aware about, and they find all of that really cool. So again, thank you so much for that. I think you've covered everything so comprehensively that basically nobody has any questions. So that was great. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Honestly, it's been a brilliant experience, and I really just hope that I've provided you with some informative information to support you with accepting your hearing loss. It's perfectly fine to have a hearing loss. There's nothing wrong with it. Every single person on this planet is completely different, and we need to learn to accept our differences. We're all unique in our own ways. Just think about it. Someone signing inspired me. So, you never know who you might inspire. Just like I hope I'm inspiring you today, I hope you then go on to inspire someone else. So I really hope you learn to accept your hearing loss if you haven't already, and you learn to understand which stage you are possibly on and what stage you need to do, what you need to do to get to the stage of accepting it. And I hope that you all can then go on to inspire someone as well.
No, thank you. We're definitely inspired. We learned a lot, and we just hope we can do justice to everything that you shared today, and take it forward. Just kind of spread the message further. Help people kind of understand that acceptance is not just something that comes all of a sudden. It's obviously a long and arduous process. You need support system, and you need a lot of people around you. That kind of understand, and you have to believe in the positivity that exists in the world, to actually plan out the future for you that's far brighter than what you would have thought when you were thinking very pessimistically about something. So I think yeah, that was definitely inspiring for a lot of us. And thank you again so much for
Thank
sharing
you.
all of your experiences.
Thank you so much for providing me with the opportunity to do this, and thank you for your wonderful questions. And again, if anyone has any questions, they can always go to my Instagram page, or if they would like us to do another session together, any topic they have, they can always just send that to us. I would be more than happy to do another session. So they can message me any questions they have on at @here_Areej if they have any questions. Otherwise, I'm sure we'll be more than happy to facilitate another session on any topic that they're interested in knowing more about. But thank you so
For
much for
sure.
the opportunity. Thank you.
No, for sure. We're making sure we run that tag in the ticker bar so everyone sees it right now as well. But we'll share it with everyone, of course. And we definitely look forward to hopefully having another session with you and maybe talking about more of the experiences that you have to share. But again, thank you so much for coming on board today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. That's about it. And then, all right. So I just want to thank you, everyone, so much for coming and joining us. I really hope that a lot of you learned something today. I hope that everyone could take away some experiences from Areej's whole life, her journey, her struggles, her obstacles, and her wins as well. I'm hoping if you personally feel that there's more sessions or there are more things that you want to learn, definitely let us know in the comments below or send us a message on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram or Twitter. We look forward to hearing from all of you. And again, thank you so much for everyone joining us. Do subscribe on our YouTube channel so you can keep up to date on all of these amazing speakers that we're going to have on board even more. And that's pretty much it. So until next time, Allah Hafiz from myself and Alia. Hafiz.